Chapter 4. Maggie followed the green dress out of the dining room, through the long, dark passageways, and into the front hall. Their footsteps rang on the bare floors, and Maggie listened to them with the ears of the silent girls in their school uniforms behind their doors, upstairs, downstairs, wherever they were, all thinking, "Here she comes, the new girl." Maybe they'd heard her shout in the dining room and were standing somewhere at open doors, pretending not to look when she finally passed by, but looking anyway under their lowered lids. Her duffel bag lay against the clothes rack where Uncle Morris had left it, and she grabbed it by its neck, bumping it behind her on the chill wooden stairs to the second story. The walls in the upstairs hall, like the walls she had seen everywhere else, were paneled in dark wood, with no daylight to brighten their grain. Aunt Lillian lit their way through the darkness by pausing here and there to pull on an overhead string, creating a dim orange circle on the floor that faded before it reached the walls. There were heavy wooden doors on either side, but none of them were open, and no girl stood within any of their frames. Maggie strained for the sound of a voice, the shuffle of a foot, but she heard nothing, and she continued along the hall, counting the doors on her fingers as she passed them. There were 10 wooden doors, all silent, all closed. Later, when no one was looking, she would open them all. They stopped at a door at one end of the hall, and Aunt Lillian opened it, leading Maggie into her room. A deep chill, cold as the breath of a passing ghost, struck her as she entered, and she clasped her arms to silence a shiver. At first she could hardly see. The only window was curtained in a heavy cloth, and the walls were painted brown. Her aunt parted the curtain, and Maggie looked around. The room would belong to her alone, she noticed. There was only one bed, a metal one, with a white cotton spread and a navy blanket folded into a rectangle across the foot. Most of the rooms in the other boarding schools had been shared, once even with 11 other girls, 6 beds to a wall. A small sink stood in one corner, a writing desk in another, and a chest of drawers filled one narrow wall. The floor was bare. Who had been here last, she wondered, and why had she left? She shrugged. Some day, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months from now, after she'd been thrown out, some other girl would stand shivering in this room and ask herself the same question. "You will be expected to keep your room clean," Aunt Lillian was saying. "There are no servants here." No servants. That was strange. Boarding schools always had servants, except they weren't called that. They were called Mildred or Cora, and sometimes they would steal food for you from the kitchen when you were sent to your room without supper. "You will make your bed every day and sweep the dust off the floor. It is unwholesome to sleep in a room with dust in the air. Remove hairs from the sink so they do not clog the drains, and do not allow anything to accumulate on the surfaces." Maggie didn't have anything to accumulate on the surfaces. No knickknacks, no stuffed animals, no photographs. Her duffel bag contained a tangle of gray-pink underwear and parts of old-school uniforms. At the bottom lay a toothbrush and a comb, a ballpoint pen, a deck of sticky cards held together with a rubber band, nothing more. "Your clothing is provided for you," her aunt said, and she opened the closet door to reveal a row of dark dresses hanging one beside another like a line of headless schoolgirls. She lifted one from the pole and held it against Maggie's body. Maggie looked down at it. It reached far below her knees, and she could tell by the pale crease where a hem had been let out that it had once belonged to someone else. The fabric pricked her skin. She wriggled away. "You will grow into it," her aunt said briskly, returning it to the closet, and she began next to remove garments from the dresser drawers. "Stand still," she ordered, as she held one article of clothing after another against Maggie's shoulders or her waist or her legs. "You will grow into these too," Aunt Lillian said, but Maggie knew she wouldn't remain here long enough to grow into anything. "They were made for better-nourished children," and her aunt rolled each piece up and returned it to the drawer. This, then, was what the other girls in the school wore. Brown cotton stockings fastened by pink rubber buttons dangling from a garter belt, shapeless brown dresses, peach pink underpants that came down to the knees, white slips, and yellowing undershirts with sleeves. She wouldn't wear any of it. She'd shove it all out of sight and wear her own clothes instead, the underpants with the torn seams and the socks that didn't match. Aunt Lillian reached now into another drawer, and Maggie turned away, not wanting to see. And now I have something else for you. A sudden change in her tone made Maggie look up anyway, and she found her aunt hiding something behind her back. It's a surprise, she said, and there was excitement in her voice. Can you guess what it is? Maggie stared at her. No, she said, and she turned away. But the next moment, something was being thrust in front of her face, and she stepped back. It was a doll. A rubber baby doll, and she could see by its unblemished cheek and stiff dress that it was brand new. A brand new baby doll with a pink rubber face, a pale arc over each glass eye, a blonde wig, and a crimson mouth smiling incongruously into the chill of the dark room. A doll! Do you like it? Aunt Lillian whispered, bending over with what looked like the start of a smile. I dressed it myself. And she lifted the doll's pink skirt to reveal a tiny pair of underpants edged in lace. Here, she said, it's for you. And the smile widened a little. Maggie took the doll and stared at the pink rubber face with its pale painted eyebrows and smiling mouth. Did everybody who come to this place get a doll? All those girls in their brown dresses and stockings who would soon come out into the dark hall from wherever they were, did they all have dolls just like this, dressed in clothes far nicer than their own? With her thumb, she pushed in the doll's rubber nose until its glass eyes bulged out in astonishment, and its smile disappeared. I don't play with dolls, she said. They're dumb. The small smile disappeared from Aunt Lillian's face, as though it too had been pushed out by a firm thumb, and a network of fine lines sprang from the corners of her mouth. She held Maggie in a shocked glare. Maggie stared back. She had learned that trick somewhere, probably from one of her old schoolmates. Stare hard at people and they drop their eyes. Then they go away. It always worked. It worked now. In a moment, Aunt Lillian was gone, closing the door behind her. Skin and bones, Maggie heard her mutter, and impudent besides. It was a great mistake allowing her here, Harriet. I don't play anything, Maggie shouted after her. Not anything. And she squeezed the doll's body between both her hands. From somewhere within its hollows there came an answering cry like that of a cat, and Maggie dropped it to the floor.